Thank you so much, Candice. Let's get to this top story now. The NPA says it was necessary for the 8-year-old victim of the Dros rape to give testimony. It further says the sequence of events needed to be established.
Today it was not about her telling the court about the initial or the main event of rape, because that was not in dispute, but rather it was about the sequence of events, how it actually, what happened before the main event of rape. She had to come and tell the court about and give evidence that rebuts what the accused was saying in his plea explanation, because you remember that in his plea explanation he says he acted impulsively, and as the state we had to prove to this court that he had an intention when he followed the child, because in his statement he says the child found me in the bathroom, but we are glad that the child came and gave testimony that says he's the one who followed me to the bathroom. So we had to prove intention, that by following the child he already had an intention to go and harm the child.
The Teddy Bear Clinic's Shahida Omar says the organization opposed the court's decision to put the little girl on the stand.
We look at the best interests of the child, and this child has gone through so much pain and trauma already. And looking at a trajectory, one cannot guarantee that she's going to be the same child she was. Everybody changes every second, but just the normality that she used to be used to, I think we have to consider that. And putting her through this kind of ordeal, was it really necessary? Looking at the best interests of the child, we take a strong stand against that.
Well, women and men against child abuse were at court today to monitor whether the matter was dealt with in a sensitive matter. And we're now joined by the spokesperson, Michiel Jacobsz. Michiel, thank you so much for your time and welcome.
Thank you.
I suppose you've been monitoring, the trial for a while, and I want to ask you what your stance is in terms of your observations leading up to today.
Okay, on the whole trial, or the trial as a whole, I think it could have been a beacon to show us how child abuse cases could be handled, because this was fast-tracked, moved to the High Court, and they set aside 2 weeks for it, which doesn't happen normally in other child abuse cases. So this was, leading the way, basically. This shows what could be done if we wanted to, if we got together. This trial has had a lot of publicity in the way that Ninow was caught in flagrante in the act, the social media videos that went viral, and I think that makes it unique. I mean, the levels of violence against this child is unfortunately in South Africa not unknown to us. We see this a lot. So this case was, because of the high publicity attached to it, moved to the High Court, given 2 weeks, which is fantastic news for us. And this is the kind of thing we'd like to see with other trials as well. Unfortunately, we've seen in the last couple of days, we were a bit wary because the prosecutor didn't seem to be well prepared for this case, as opposed to Michiel Jacobsz, who handled it first and was very thorough. But we've got a judge who seems to be very awake and running that his courtroom like it's his own courtroom. So that is good. So far, I mean, Ninow is guilty, beyond a doubt. We just want to see that the proper process happens and that he gets the minimum prescribed sentence, which is life. We've seen too many judges hand down 10 years or 8 years or whatever for deviating from this minimum prescribed sentence because of mitigating circumstances, etc. So what has happened today, the child testifying, is good, because it will obviously act in an aggravating way, should I say, for Ninow, to say that he did this with intent.
Let's talk about that for a moment. What do you think about how the court handled, the 8-year-old minor's testimony? It was away from, the media. It was through a CCTV footage. How do you feel about how it was handled?
I think what we've seen at court, we were there today ourselves, I was there until the judge ordered us out, is that they seem to have followed the protocol, which those protocols are put in place to protect the child testifying. It need not be as big a traumatic event for the child to testify. She's not the first child to testify like that. As long as the intermediary is a professional, all the people tasked with making sure that this child does it in an environment that is amenable to her giving concise testimony, not asked unnecessary questions, etc. As long as all those conditions are met, it should be fine for the child to give testimony in a case like this, I believe. Now, I've heard what our esteemed colleagues have said to the contrary. I tend to disagree with them, because in this case it was necessary. It could be part of that child's healing journey eventually. The fact that she did give testimony, even if it's only up until a point. A bit of vengeance for the act or redemption for what has happened to her. And I think that if it was handled properly, and like I said earlier, that judge is good at what he does, I think it would have been. So we needn't worry too much about that. I think it was good because she contradicted Ninow's statements today flat out.
And what would you like to see happen next as an organization?
Well, we've got the closing statements now, and I trust that this judge will move to sentencing fairly soon. He has pleaded guilty to most of the charges. It was only the assault thing, which they focused on quite a bit in the court. I hope that they move, closing arguments tomorrow, and then move to sentencing swiftly. And that we see the minimum which our law prescribes, like I said earlier, a life sentence, to send out a message to other people as well. We won't tolerate this. As long as due process is followed and he's had a proper court case and the truth has come out about what has happened, I think we should see a life sentence, no less. How could we be satisfied with anything less? Not just for Ninow, but for every child rapist to come.
And I think after even the case has ended and the sentence has been given, is the minor's life that has to continue. What should happen next for her at this point in time, for her to move on from this?
Well, I think post this testimony of her that's been out, the most important thing was to see her get back into therapy again. After an event such as this, just to be on the safe side rather, because the child's life has been irrevocably changed by what has happened to her, which is tragic, unnecessary, and the levels of hurt that she'd carry for the rest of her life. I mean, now it's basically seeing that good, proper professional care is given to her so that this child can move on to her life, and that this event, as much as it could be minimized in her future.
Michiel Jacobsz, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you too.
All right then. Well, let's move on to this now. More to come.